A sleep clinic, a group of exhausted narrators and dreams that don't stay in the dark. Every night in October, nightmares become reality. Listen to this epic 31-part saga where the only thing scarier than the dreams is the therapy. Creepy presents The 31 Days of Horror. The nightmare begins October 1st. Listen to the whole series on the Creepy feed wherever you listen to podcasts. Wake up to the nightmare.
Today's episode is brought to you by Good Boy, a new haunted house film told entirely from a dog's perspective. When Indy the dog moves into a rural home with his owner, he discovers supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As dark entities threaten his human companion, this brave pup must fight to protect the ones he loves most. Don't miss the canine performance everyone is talking about. See Indy in Good Boy, only in theaters October 3rd. Get tickets today at goodboy.movie.
From Bloody FM, step into a mysterious shop where every object has a sordid tale to tell.
You have plunged so deep into the depths of despair.
Meet the antique dealer and a rotating cast of the best in horror.
I didn't believe in stuff like this. This wasn't real.
Mike Flanagan, Kate Siegel, David Dasmulchin, Jocelyn Donahue, and more. The antiquarium of sinister happenings and odd goings-on. No refunds, no exchanges. Experience it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you a bedtime story. Once again, I've partnered with the Wrong Station podcast, and boy, do I have a doozy for you tonight. You better check those trigger warnings, and when you do, I bet you $5 it's not the triggers you thought it would be. I'll wait if you don't mind spoilers. Okay. Are you back? Do you owe me $5? Well, one reason I wanted to have the Wrong Station back on is to celebrate their 10-year anniversary. That's right, Wrong Station is turning 10 years old this fall. To celebrate their decade of dread, they're releasing one episode every day in October. That's 31 brand new episodes in 31 days. Yes, I know it sounds insane, but it's true. So tune into their show every night in October for a new spooky story. I know that's what I'll be doing. You can listen to The Wrong Station on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite horror podcasts, like this one. This is one of your favorites, right? Right? So on with the episode. This was written by the ever-talented Alexander Saxton. This is Mannequins. I never thought of myself as the sort of person you'd find sitting in his car at 2 a.m., stinking of another woman's sweat, while his wife stays up at home, taking care of a newborn with colic. But if I'm honest with myself, I always sort of suspected I was. Let's not get into when I gave myself permission to be that kind of man. You know, it was easy enough to stay loyal 200 years ago, when we were all just sitting in the village covered in pig shit. But today, you're just bombarded with it. Every wall plastered with some smooth face, some curve of taut flesh. Each time you look at your phone, I mean, come on, it's just everywhere. Doesn't it just bring it out of you? Knowing there's someone more attractive, more perfect, just a few swipes away? Knowing you can have it. So yeah, that was how I found myself. 2 a.m. Both hands on the steering wheel, feeling the buttery leather, the thick, stitched seams pressed into my fingertips, promising myself it was for the last time. I always went out for a drive, afterward. Always ended up in the same half-forgotten neck of town, somewhere nobody would recognize my license plate. You know the type of place. Long, empty streets of grimy brown brick 2 stories, lit up orange in the night. Streets empty, shops half boarded up. You wonder who lives here, who goes here, and never find out. I was parked in the usual spot, a 5-way intersection of empty shops and apartments and a radiant gas station with one sleeping clerk at the checkout. There was only one shop at the intersection, crouched out there in the rear view as I sat with the window open, smoking cigarettes to cover up the scent of perfume. Any name long since faded from its ragged awning. Inside the dusty front window, a few old mannequins posed woodenly in the gloom, all long legs and right angles, whorish and uncanny in red rayon lingerie. The storefront always dark, always hollow. Except that night, for the very first time, a light was burning above the door. A white flickering bulb, cold, yellowish blue, humming in the summer night. 2 weeks later, I was sitting there again, the feeling of Marina's hips still in my hands as I fumbled for a cigarette. And there was that light bulb, burning cold. The thought occurred to me, who's paying that electric bill? I pulled around and parked on the other side of the street, facing that dusty window. It had been raining earlier that evening. Marina, watching tail lights on the turnpike, bead red through the window droplets as I struggled limply with a condom. But now, the night had cleared, the humidity gone, a freshness dispersing the cigarette smoke from my open window. I decided to take a closer look, the click of my car door deafening in the 2 a.m. silence, the click of expensive shoes on damp pavement, the rustle of broadcloth in the breeze, my dim reflection in the dusty glass. Somebody had changed the mannequins. The lingerie still red, but darker, the color of fuck me lipstick, like Catherine had worn to the office party last Christmas. I stepped close to the glass, studying the cloth. No longer rayon. Now the mannequins were all provocative and tight silk, soft as young skin, woven in patterns I'd never seen before, held tight to the plastic flesh. Alluring. Designer, certainly. I wanted to study it more closely, feel the grain between my fingertips, smell whatever faint tinge still lingered from the model's body. I realized my ragged breath was fogging the glass, and that a flush had stolen up my neck. God, I must look ridiculous, I thought. Some kind of midnight lecher ogling the mannequins. I stepped back quickly, clearing my throat as I glanced around the second-story windows, half expecting to see some mocking face. But they were all dark. The only face in that empty intersection was my own, plus a few vague simulacra in the dusty window. I turned away quickly and drove home, found wife and child asleep in the nursery, both with circles underneath their eyes. I showered, scrubbing myself virginal in the heat, then slept on the couch, dreaming of turnpike lights beaded red against the moaning glass. This week's episode is sponsored by Bleecker Street and LD Entertainment's new horror film, Bone Lake. When two unsuspecting couples double book a secluded lakeside estate, what begins as a romantic getaway quickly spirals into blood-soaked mayhem. Deadly secrets, brutal betrayals, and fatal desires rise to the surface as the night plunges into a fever dream of gore, camp, and erotic terror. In what Bloody Disgusting calls a goddamn blast from start to finish, comes a film that rises above its genre conventions, twisting them on their heads in a deviously playful way, drenched in style, splattered in blood, and unapologetically unhinged. Bone Lake is the sexiest, scariest party of the year, and you're invited. Experience Bone Lake exclusively in theaters October 3rd. Tickets are on sale now.
A sleep clinic, a group of exhausted narrators and dreams that don't stay in the dark. Every night in October, nightmares become reality. Listen to this epic 31-part saga where the only thing scarier than the dreams is the therapy. Creepy presents The 31 Days of Horror. The nightmare begins October 1st. Listen to the whole series on the Creepy feed wherever you listen to podcasts. Wake up to the nightmare.
It had to be some sort of boutique, a specialty shop, secret, hyper-exclusive, a speakeasy of lingerie. That light on every night and the changing silks that crawled up plastic thighs in the window. It had to be. Unless it was something more illicit still. A bordello, known only by word of mouth or discovered by enterprising nighttime travelers. Marina's birthday was coming up. Maybe a gift was in order. I could only lie about working late so many nights a week, so I canceled plans with Marina that evening and stayed at the office until the streetlights below were truly dead. By the time a long, gray elevator took me down to the parking garage, I was trembling as I emerged out into coal and orange humidity as I half-jogged to the sleek blackness of my Mercedes. I took a moment to gather myself inside, wrapping fingers around the wheel, the cool calf skin. What was I anticipating? Why was I so excited? Why had I canceled plans with my mistress to drive out to a poor part of town and stare through a dusty window? I put my foot to the gas, broke every speed limit roaring through the silent neighborhoods. I didn't even think of police. They don't stop a car like mine, not in this city. Once, I tried to find the intersection with the shop by day, but had become totally lost. Now I knew my way instinctively, like I was following some whiff of honeysuckle on the air. That light still on as I roared into the intersection, cold and yellow-blue, as I slammed my door in the silence. No eyes watching from the upper windows. My pulse in my throat as I stepped toward that cool, humming light. That dusty glass. That door. My palms sweating as I reached for the knob. And I found it. unlocked. Inside, the shop all dark, the air tinged with dust and scented with its dry perfume. All was empty. Empty shelves, empty racks, an empty checkout desk, and behind it, an open door to a black and empty back of house. All dark. And then, the soft rustle of footsteps behind me. I turned and felt cool limbs wrapped around my own, cool faces nuzzling against my neck, a cool hand thrust down the front of my pants, and at the same time, my fingers splayed against cold plastic flesh, caressing, exploring, testing the grain of silk cloth as I pulled it down past plastic curves, exposing flat areolae and hard, cold, rough-edged plastic holes. They took me, all four of them, from the dusty window, and it was as hard and painful as any in my life, and to this day, I cannot get the hunger, thirst for it out of my mind. I drove home that night, wide-eyed and gray with damp sweat, not certain what had happened, not certain if I was out of my mind, reliving and reliving the silent ecstasies that they had inflicted on me. I showered, though there was no perfume to wash from me, but that of dust, no lubrication, but that of my own blood. It had been some time since my wife and I had been intimate. I was lucky in that I wouldn't have been able to explain the chafing wounds. For a week, I stayed home sick and pitying myself, while also tortured by fantasies and recollections of what had happened. I developed a urinary tract infection. When I felt up to leaving the house again, it was only a day or two before I was asked to leave the department store near my office for passing what I thought was a subtle hand up the thigh of one of the window mannequins. It was several weeks before I saw Marina again. She was understandably chilly toward me. I'd missed her birthday, been distant. She thought I'd ghosted. But when I gave her the half-truth that I'd been ill, she relented. We met up like we used to, at an out-of-the-way cocktail bar in her corner of the city, drank old fashions in the humid shadows, laughed and threw long, dark, charged looks at one another, like when we'd first been playing with the idea of cheating. It felt like a new beginning for us. Until she invited me back to her place, and I asked if she had any outfits she could wear, anything plastic and cold, like a cheap Halloween costume. She laughed at first and played along, dressing herself in the latex of a dollar store nurse. But she took offense when I tried to get her to lie still, to fold herself into cold, right angles. You know what? That's enough. She got up, put on a robe, stood by the door with her arms folded. I'm fed up with you always creeping off to use Tinder in the bathroom when we're out, staring at ads like you want to fuck the billboards they're printed on. It's embarrassing. It's creepy. Oh, like you're so perfect. I'm not the only one here cheating. She said, I'd like you to leave now. God, that calm tone of voice was so much worse. I wish she'd screamed at me. I stalked out of her place in an unconsummated fever and got in my car and drove without having any idea where. Just drove for the sake of driving, to try and take my mind off the truth of what she'd said. The shame had been bad enough before when it was only infidelity. But now, what had I become? I'd taken to standing in the kitchen and wrapping plastic wrap around my hand until the skin went gray and numb, just to feel that touch on my cheek. There was something sick inside me. I pulled over to the side of the road and shouted and hit the steering wheel as hard as I could. I blubbered like a little child, feeling the snot pool on my upper lip and dribble down the edge of my mouth. I whimpered and rocked back and forth, saying, I'm sorry, to no one for nothing in particular. It was some time before I realized where my Mercedes had brought me. A 5-way intersection in the middle of nowhere. Brown brick tenements. A gas station blazing with gray-green light. And an abandoned shop with plastic sirens in the window. Above its door, a light still on. It was with almost resignation that I got out of the car, trudged up to the lighted door. Resignation and a cold, pulse-pounding anticipation. And I found the door locked. Some little time after that, the false dawn found me crouching on that stoop, still sobbing softly with relief. Well, I could tell you I changed my ways after that. It's certainly what I told myself. I stopped seeing other people, deleted the apps, tried to keep my eyes to myself, tried to be a better husband, a better father, any kind of father, really. But I still kept one night a week where I stayed late at the office, just for the plausible deniability, just in case. I still drove around sometimes, late at night, just to stay in practice. Nights like that, I'd stop sometimes, outside the shops, on the Mink Mile or in Little India, and just watch the window mannequins. Feeling my hands grow clammy on the steering wheel, the blood pulsing in my veins. Remembering. But I didn't go back to the gas station or the 5-way intersection or the shop with the lights still on. After all, I told myself I'd changed. I stayed away. Until I came across it by accident, one afternoon in the early winter. I mean it when I say accident. I was running errands on a Sunday afternoon in a completely different corner of the city than where I thought the gas station was, when suddenly I turned a corner and there it was. 5-way intersection ringed by brown, black 2-stories, a little dry window filled with mannequins, and red rayon lingerie. I pulled into the gas station, filled up, went inside for a cup of terrible coffee. A young Desi guy at the counter. Hey, is that place across the street ever open? Place across the street? He craned his neck at the window. Oh, yeah, no, never. Been here like 5 years. Been closed the entire time. Even at night? He tilted his head, frowning. It was clear I was getting at something, but he wasn't sure exactly what. Trying to score drugs? Coming on to him? I'd made him uneasy, and I excused myself, forgetting my coffee and the plastic tray full of scratch tickets. Crossing the street, I drifted over to the shop, unable to stop myself even though I could feel the young guy craning his neck to watch me go. The light above the door was off. Maybe it was on a timer. I stood at the dusty window for a long time, not moving. 5 fingertips pressed to the glass beneath her lacy silk and satin straps. One of the mannequins was visibly pregnant. I returned that night, woke up at 2 a.m. and walked out the door, not answering my wife when she asked where I was going, turning off my cell when she called me 5 times in panic, jogging to my Mercedes, sliding into the calfskin seat, feeling the machine cool and muscular beneath me, closing my eyes, trying to feel like the machine's power was my own, trying to feel agency. Fruitless. I opened my eyes, cranked the radio, and hit the gas. Cocaine music on the radio, engine roaring down the arterial roads, shaking glass in the homes 2 streets back, heart pounding, mouth dry. Once again, my body knew the way to the 5-way intersection. I could have closed my eyes and drifted there. I skidded into the parking space that was always open. Sat there, eyes closed, smelling the burning rubber, letting the grinding synths flow over me. Then, when I thought I was ready, turned the key and let it all go silent. I opened the door, lurched out into the biting winter night. Dry, cold, bits of gritty frost condensing in the air to whip in front of orange streetlights. The wool/mohair blend of my overcoat, unable to keep a cold plastic wind from cutting my skin. The window was empty, too dark inside to make anything but vague, dark fingers. I licked my dry lips. A smell of perfumed dust was on the air, and it made me powerfully aroused. Despite the cold, despite the growing taste of dread in my throat, I stepped slowly to the door, reaching out through the gritty wind to take its battered, cold knob in my hand. Tarnished brass, lit gray-green by the white bulb above the lintel. Unlocked. The door swung open. Wind blew past me, seeking warmth, but I could still make out nothing inside, only dim figures. A soft rustling noise. Perfumed dust. Choking lust. I stepped through. My footsteps rang against the dry linoleum. I half expected the rushing plastic seduction I'd known before, half longed for it. But the mannequins, whose gray forms I could now vaguely see, were completely still. They'd been removed from the window, arranged in a new scene. One of the mannequins, the pregnant one, was lying on the floor with her knees folded and a white sheet across her abdomen. A second mannequin crouched beside her, holding her hand. A third, dressed in a white lab coat and cartoonish head mirror that clashed with her crimson undergarments, was crouched on the other side, carrying a scalpel. The fourth mannequin was on her feet, facing away from me. I stood for a long moment, with the cold wind around my ankles, trying to make sense of the scene as a sense of revulsion crept its way up the back of my throat. At last, I realized why. It was because that mannequin on the floor was dead. Without looking, I could tell that beneath the white sheet, a yawning cut would reveal the hollow emptiness of her plastic womb. Dead, the bloodless bleeding too much to bear. But what could it possibly mean for her to be dead? For something plastic, something false, something that never lived. How could it even be hurt? How could it be my fault? And yet, the mannequin that knelt beside and held her hand had its face tilted up toward me. Featureless, accusatory. Yes, she was dead. Yes, it was my fault. And then, that small, soft, rustling sound again. The one I'd heard while standing at the threshold. The fourth mannequin, facing away from me, holding something in her arms. I stepped forward, leaving a wide circle of footprints in the dust around that gray tableau, and came up beside her in the dim, grime-filtered light of the gas station across the street. She carried a baby in her arms. Small, slender. The little gray limbs looked too long for a human body. Her torso, too long and curved for a baby's. And among the flat, idealized features of her plastic face, a pair of eyes. My own. She looked up at me as I took her in my arms, drawing a quiet, shuddering breath, half alive. "Hello," I murmured, reaching one finger for her to grasp with slender, plastic hands. "Hello. I'm your father. You're perfect." Thank you to Alexander Saxton, the author tonight, and to Wrong Station. Thank you so much for being such a good partner throughout this last, year, few months. I don't know how long we've been doing this back and forth, but it's been so fun. And if you haven't checked it out, they did a rendition of God Will Provide, one of my most popular stories, so go check out their version of God Will Provide. And if you'd like ad-free episodes of this show, you can find it on patreon.com/scareyoutosleep. You can also find bonus episodes, and you can find news about the show at Scare You to Sleep on all the socials. You can find me personally at Shelby B. Novak. I do mostly stick around Instagram these days, but there is also a Facebook group that I do pop into once in a while that is that's pretty lively. Go check out the Facebook group. Go check out Scare You to Eat, which is the spin-off of the Facebook group where we just talk about food. And this episode is coming out very close to the deadline, but remember, get in your kids' stories by October 1st. And I've already gotten a good bit of them, and I'm very excited to read them. So yes, if you have any kids' stories, please send them in by October 1st, scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. Please do not send them in late. I will not accept late submissions. I'm so sorry. I have to be stricter about the rules. Unfortunately, over the last few years, I've had some people who have tried to bend the rules in too many ways, so I have to be a little bit strict. I know, I hate it too. I don't like being bossy. I don't like it. But please send them in by the deadline, scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. Please put kids submission in the subject line. And I love it if you send me your child's age, or the child you are submitting for, their age. It helps me put everything in order. I forgot to put that in the list of requirements this year. I totally forgot. And I haven't really gone through them all. I think most people have sent in the age. And so if you've already sent in one and you forgot the age, just send it in. And if you didn't put in the age, don't worry. I'll just sort of tuck it in to wherever I feel like it might kind of go with the other stories around that age. simply because I like to go from youngest to oldest. It helps, especially the younger listeners, the guardians and parents of the younger listeners, turn off the episode before it gets a little too intense when it gets to the older buddies, the older horror buddies of mine, budding horror authors. So, yes, let's see what else is on the docket. Well, Halloween. Halloween is coming up. So I'm very excited. I have a lot of stuff planned. I don't have 31 days of things planned. That is for my friends over at Wrong Station. And Creepy also does 31 days of horror. So check that out too. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. I don't know how all of them do it. Hats off to them. I'm not wearing a hat, but if I was, I would take it off to them. I've got a little bit of the late night giggles, I admit, over here doing this outro. I just finished making apple bread and having a Heineken while I edited the rest of this episode. So I probably won't stick around for long, but I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Yes. What else? Did I miss any of the housekeeping stuff? Email scareyoutosleep@gmail.com if you have any submissions. Send in your true stories. I'd love to do, I do want to sneak in some bonus stuff throughout the Halloween month. It won't be 31 days of it, but I'd like to sneak some extra things in. So if I could do like an extra true stories or something, I'm going to do some guided nightmares, the kids episode, RSLE part 3. Man, just very excited. I also have some other projects I have that I just got hired for outside of this show that I wish I could tell you about because it's really cool and really exciting, but I can't tell you yet. So sorry. Oh, and if you're looking for a good apple bread recipe, this one is not sweet, which is very interesting. Honestly, I feel like it would go really well with like sausages or like breakfast foods. But it's not like there's a glaze you can put on it that's sweet. It's like a maple glaze. I chose not to, and it's so good. It's called Chunky Apple Yeast Bread, which is not a very sexy name. Like that's not a very cute name, I will say. Chunky Apple Yeast Bread. I mean, we could probably do better on the name, but that's what it's called. And it is from Seasons and Suppers. This is the first recipe I've ever used from that website. So, I liked it. I really liked it. It was a more labor-intensive bread, just because you have to. I hate peeling and coring apples. I hate it. It's one of my least favorite kitchen tasks. So maybe that's why it felt more labor-intensive to me, because I hate peeling and coring apples. I don't have an apple corer, so that's probably one of the things. I also don't have an apple peel. Like they have those machines that like peel and core apples for you. I don't have one. It's all by hand, so it's just kind of a pain in the ass to me. But it was worth it for this bread. And again, it does not turn out very sweet, which is so interesting. So for tonight, I had a piece with just butter on it. I did another piece with like cinnamon and sugar on it, the way you'd make like cinnamon toast. So good. And tomorrow, I'm going to make French toast with it. I'm going to do all the things to this bread. Well, not all the things. I mean, after this episode, I can't say doing all the things to the things, because after what happened to those mannequins, you just got to be more specific around here. Okay, I'm going to go because my vibe is a little too upbeat for the ending of a horror show. I've been very mindful of keeping the vibe down here in the spooky zone, because I have heard you and I agree with your constructive criticism that I need to keep the vibe and not go into Heineken apple bread world, which I'm in right now, because it breaks the vibe, and I hear you and I agree. And I think that's good constructive criticism. So I'm going to adhere to that, and I feel myself drifting. I feel it. It's late. Getting the giggles. I'm going to go make some apple bread this weekend or this week. You know, I know pumpkin is the star of the show through October. I understand that. But have you considered the humble apple? because it's really good. Really good. Apple bread. Go do it. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Okay, I love you. And I hope you have a wonderful week. And I hope all of your dreams come true. I've got to go. Okay, I love you. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.
Staten Island, New York, 1993. A place where every block has its secrets, and some of them are thirsty. From Christopher Feinstein, creator of the podcast Haunted American History, comes a new kind of vampire story. One rooted in the forgotten corners of New York City's most misunderstood borough. The Forgotten Borough, a novel of friendship, survival, and the monsters waiting just past the streetlights. Available October from The Evil Cookie. Pre-orders available now.
A sleep clinic, a group of exhausted narrators and dreams that don't stay in the dark. Every night in October, nightmares become reality. Listen to this epic 31-part saga where the only thing scarier than the dreams is the therapy. Creepy presents The 31 Days of Horror. The nightmare begins October 1st. Listen to the whole series on the Creepy feed wherever you listen to podcasts. Wake up to the nightmare.
You love video games, but you don't always have time for video games. Post Games is a new podcast for the indoor kids who had to grow up. Each week, veteran game journalist Chris Plant, that's me, combines original interviews and reporting to answer your most pressing video game questions. Who is creating all of those new, sexy, not safe for work games? How did video game movies go from box office poison to blockbuster? Find out on Post Games, available now on your favorite podcast app.